Level 1. The recruit. You're 18. You signed the papers yourself. Nobody forced you. But standing in the reception battalion line at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, with a duffel bag and no idea what comes next, that decision already feels like it belonged to someone else. Your civilian clothes go into a box. Someone hands you a uniform, points you toward a bunk, and explains how to make it tight enough to bounce a quarter off the sheets. You have 45 seconds to figure it out. You don't. Drill Sergeant Harris doesn't introduce himself. He appears. First night, 2 a.m., boots on the floor, voice filling the entire barracks. Not because anything is wrong, just to make sure you understand where you are now. Wake up is 4:30 a.m. You run before the sun does. You low crawl through South Carolina mud in August heat that feels like breathing through a soaked cloth. You do push-ups until your arms stop feeling like yours. Then you do more. Week 2, a recruit named Dominguez walks into the administrative office, sets his gear on the desk, and asks to go home. He's on a bus by noon. Nobody says anything at dinner that evening, but everyone is thinking the same thing. Could I do that? You decide the answer is no. Not because you're fearless, because you're more afraid of becoming someone who quit than someone who suffered. You graduate basic combat training on a Tuesday morning at Hilton Field. Your family watches from the bleachers. Your mother cries. You don't let yourself. The army doesn't build toughness from the outside. It puts you under enough pressure to find what was already there. Or level 2, private first class. You're 19. You're assigned to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles. The unit has a reputation that stretches back to Normandy and Bastogne, and they make sure you know it within the first hour on post. Your days belong entirely to someone else. You clean weapons you didn't fire. You pull guard duty at 3 a.m. in January, wind that cuts straight through your uniform. You carry equipment that weighs more than your younger brother. Nobody asks how you feel about any of it. There's a specialist named Carver in your platoon, 3 years in. He moves around the base like it was designed around his schedule. He shows you how to eat fast, how to prep your gear the night before so the morning doesn't own you, and how to stay invisible when leadership is in a bad mood. One evening, he tells you, without looking up from his boots, the army doesn't reward clever. It rewards present and ready. You don't write it down. You don't need to. One morning, your platoon receives a no-notice 12-mile ruck march. Full gear, no warning, no sympathy. 6 miles in, the blisters on your left heel split open. You feel the slow warmth spreading inside your boot. You don't stop moving. You don't tell anyone. You finish. The medic wraps your foot afterward and says, "You should have reported it sooner." You nod. But you already understand something he doesn't. Finishing when it hurts is the only resume that matters here. Level 3. Specialist. You're 21. You deployed. 8 months in Kandahar province, Afghanistan. The heat is a physical presence, or something like a hand pressing flat against your shoulders from sunrise to sundown, never letting up. Your assignment is route clearance. You walk roads ahead of vehicle convoys and search for IEDs before the vehicles roll over them. You move slowly, methodically, without rushing. Because rushing is how people die. And you've heard that enough times now that it lives in your body, not just your head. The days settle into a grinding sameness. Dust, heat, radio chatter, the long mechanical rhythm of a patrol that ends the same way it started. But one afternoon, Specialist Torres stops the entire column with one raised fist. He saw something the rest of you didn't. A faint wire running along the road's shoulder toward a drainage culvert, barely visible against the dirt. Easy to miss if you were moving even slightly too fast. EOD is called forward. The device is confirmed real. Enough explosive to flip a fully armored vehicle and everyone inside it. That night, you eat your MRE in silence and sit with what Torres saw that you didn't. You weren't careless. You were just less experienced. There's a real difference between those two things. But out here, That difference has consequences that don't come with second chances. You start seeing differently after that. You stop looking at roads, you start reading them. You fly home 8 months later. The airport in Nashville is loud and bright and completely indifferent to everything that just happened. A woman near baggage claim is arguing on her phone about a restaurant reservation. You stand still for a long moment and just watch her. The world kept moving. You just weren't in it. Level 4. Sergeant. You're 24. Or you lead a 4-man team now. Not because you asked for it. Because Staff Sergeant Okafor put your name forward and the army agreed. Leadership is nothing like you imagined. It isn't standing in front. It's standing between. Between your soldiers and bad decisions handed down from above. Between exhaustion and mission requirements. Between what needs to be done and what's actually possible with the people and equipment you have. Your youngest soldier is Private Reyes, 19 years old, fast learner, never complains in formation, but you catch him staring at his phone on the rare occasions he has signal, and the homesickness sits on him like extra weight in his ruck. Some things you can't train away. One evening, he asks you directly whether it gets easier. You think about Torres reading that road in Kandahar. You think about Carver's advice at Fort Campbell. You think about the blisters you never reported. No, you tell him, but you get stronger. That's better than easier. He nods slowly, like he's storing it somewhere he won't forget. The mission isn't only the objective marked on the map. The mission is making sure the people beside you are still standing when it's over. Before we go further, if you've made it this far, comment what you want next. Hit that like button right now and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We upload every single day. Level 5, Staff Sergeant. You're 27, back stateside at Fort Campbell. You oversee 2 teams now and report to Lieutenant Mercer, 23 years old, freshly commissioned out of ROTC and extremely confident about things he has never actually done. You recognize the look. You wore it once. You develop a skill here that nobody formally teaches: managing upward. You give Mercer just enough information to feel in control while quietly making sure the decisions that actually matter are sound ones. It isn't deception. It's experience protecting inexperience from itself. Second deployment, Mosul, Iraq, 2016. The city is being recaptured block by block from ISIS, and urban combat is nothing like the open roads of Kandahar. Every building is a separate decision. Every alley is a question that doesn't come with good answers. Your squad loses Private First Class Adeyemi on a Thursday morning. He was 20 years old. His daughter had been born 3 weeks into the deployment. He never got to hold her. You write the condolence letter yourself. You sit with it for 2 hours before you seal the envelope. And every sentence feels completely inadequate. Because it is. There are no words that cover that kind of distance. You don't address it with your team directly. The morning after, you run PT harder than usual. Nobody questions why. Some weight doesn't need words. It needs movement and time, and the quiet understanding that everyone in the formation carries the same thing. The cost of leadership isn't authority. It's the names you carry home that the country never learns. Level 6, Sergeant First Class. You're 31. You're a platoon sergeant now. 40 soldiers fall under your direct responsibility. Their training, their readiness, their welfare, their mistakes, all of it reaches your desk before it reaches anyone above you. You are the filter and the foundation at the same time. A new lieutenant arrives. West Point graduate, sharp, she'll ask good questions, genuinely wants to learn. You see something of your younger self in him, except more polished and far less weathered. You take that gap as your personal responsibility. You train him the way Okafor once trained you, quietly, consistently, and without ever making him feel managed. Your battalion deploys to Romania on a NATO training rotation. Cold, grey skies, logistically complicated in ways nobody briefed you on. You spend most of the rotation solving problems that were created 3 levels above you and handed downward without explanation or resources to fix them. One evening, a young specialist named Whitfield finds you after hours. He isn't struggling with the mission. Something heavier than that. You sit with him for a full hour. You don't fix it. You can't. But you make sure he knows that someone in this unit noticed him. The next morning, he shows up to formation on time. That's enough. The thing that holds a unit together is invisible. It's the belief that the person beside you cares enough to notice when something is wrong. Level 7, Master Sergeant. You're 37. You're assigned to a brigade headquarters now. Your world has shifted from leading soldiers directly to shaping how an entire organization thinks and operates. Policy, planning cycles, resource allocation, personnel reviews. You sit in briefings where decisions affect thousands of people and are made in under 10 minutes. You've learned to compress everything essential into 3 sentences because that's all the time you'll ever get. You mentor 3 staff sergeants simultaneously this year. One of them, Staff Sergeant Chen, has more raw leadership instinct than anyone you've seen since Torres back in Kandahar. You push her harder than the others because you can already see the ceiling she hasn't hit yet. She resents it briefly, then she doesn't. A training accident occurs in a subordinate battalion during a live fire exercise. A soldier is seriously injured. No one is killed, but the investigation moves upward through the chain methodically, and you watch how blame travels through a large organization when something goes wrong. At this level, your name is attached to everything your soldiers do. The good and the difficult arrive at your door together, and you don't get to choose which ones you accept. Level 8, Sergeant Major. You're 43. Senior enlisted advisor for a battalion of nearly 800 soldiers. The battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Graves, is a capable officer, but he speaks to the troops through you because you carry a language he was never fully taught. The language of someone who has lived every level of this from the bottom up. You are the institutional memory of this unit. You've seen what quietly hollows out a battalion from the inside. Leaders who perform for their superiors and vanish for their subordinates. Burnout dressed up as high standards. Soldiers leaving not because the mission is hard, but because no one treated them like they mattered. You don't let any of it go without being addressed. Not anymore. Deployment to Djibouti, Horn of Africa. Advising partner forces, logistics operations, counter-terrorism support. No front-page headlines, no dramatic firefights. Just long, consequential, grinding work in heat that makes Kandahar feel mild. Or a sergeant first class named Diallo puts in his retirement papers halfway through the rotation. 22 years of service. You sit with him the night before, he submits them, and don't try to talk him out of it. I gave it everything I had, he tells you. I know, you say. That's exactly why it's the right time. You've stopped measuring your career in deployments. You measure it in the people who are still standing. Level 9, Command Sergeant Major. You're 49. You advise a brigade commander now. Colonel Hargrove is sharp, politically aware, and under pressure from every direction at once. Your job is to be the one person in the room who tells him what he actually needs to hear instead of what everyone else is telling him he wants to hear. That role requires a specific kind of courage that has nothing to do with being under fire. A retention crisis is quietly draining experienced NCOs out of your brigade. The numbers don't scream in any single report, but they're visible to anyone paying close attention. You write a detailed assessment and send it up the chain. It is acknowledged, then shelved. You rewrite it, send it through a different channel. A 2-star general reads it and summons you to a meeting. He listens for 40 minutes without interrupting. 3 months later, a pilot retention program launches across your brigade. You receive no official credit. You don't need credit. You need it to work. You think about Reyes, now a staff sergeant stationed in the Pacific. You think about Chen, who just pinned Sergeant First Class. You think about Adeyemi's daughter, who is 9 years old and has never known her father. You didn't serve the army. You served the people inside it. Level 10, Sergeant Major of the Army. You're 54. There is one of you. one sergeant major of the Army at any given time, the senior enlisted soldier in the entire United States Army. You advise the Chief of Staff of the Army directly. Every policy that touches enlisted soldiers passes through your office. You speak for nearly 500,000 people in uniform. The office is quieter than people imagine it would be. You travel constantly. Fort Campbell, Fort Cavazos in Texas, Fort Wainwright in Alaska, bases in South Korea, Germany, Kuwait. You walk into dining facilities and motor pools and barracks unannounced. You eat the same food. You sit across from soldiers who don't know who you are and ask them what's actually broken. You listen the way someone listens when they have no reason to pretend. Ask because rank at this level is only worth something if you still remember where it came from. A young private at a base in Germany stops you near the motor pool one afternoon. He doesn't know your name or your rank. He just sees someone in uniform who looks like they might have answers. He asks you whether it's worth it. The deployments, the distance from family, the physical cost. Whether any of it actually means something when it's over. You look at him for a moment without answering. You think about Fort Jackson in August, about the wire Torres saw in the road in Kandahar that you didn't, about Adeyemi, about Reyes asking you the same question in a different country a long time ago, about Chen, about Diallo, who gave 22 years and walked away clean, about every name you brought home that never made the news. It means exactly as much as you decide it means, you tell him. Not 1 ounce more and not 1 ounce less. He nods. You keep walking. The Army doesn't make you who you are. It gives you enough pressure, enough loss, enough purpose, and enough time to figure it out yourself. That's the one thing basic combat training couldn't teach you. You had to earn it one rank at a time.